Jy kyk en luister na die groot ontbyt en ons fokus vanoggend op die registrasie van skoolkinders en dit nou in publieke of openbare skole. So ons het die woordvoerder van die departement van basiese onderwys, Steve Mabona, hier by ons in die ateljee om daaroor te gesels. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning and to all our viewers.
Okay, so let's just start with the basic rules and regulations with regard to registration processes.
Look, you'll understand that we had to come up with the amendments to the regulations, because of the Constitutional Court decision that the departments must decide on admissions, make sure that the feeder zones are not discriminative. Feeder zones are not only on a kilometer restricted. They are, you look at the areas that must benefit. Like for instance, if a school, you might even go beyond 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, but you look at the areas that must benefit. So each and every school will have a unique map where you're going to see areas that are going to benefit out of that school. Unlike before, if you were outside of 5 kilometer radius, irrespective, you would not be accommodated at the school. So now all areas that are within the feeder zone, which has been determined by the school in consultation with the department, because we had to go and consult all the schools, over 2,000 schools, on their individual feeder zone. So it's not like now one size fits all. So each and every school will have their feeder zone, because some of the schools were, compacted in the same area, where you will find probably high schools, two in the same area. And when you say 5 kilometer radius, then some of the people who might have benefited, they would not benefit because of the radius. But when you look at the numbers of people that can access the school, there's some limitation. So if schools are compacted, then you will have a certain school which will be taking responsibility of other areas, and the other school will also accommodate other areas, so that when you apply, you are then within the feeder zone. But what you then look at is the address. Those that are living closer to the school, they will then be prioritized. Secondly, those that are working closer to the school, they will also be prioritized. And those that have a sibling in the school as well, they will be prioritized. And you then look at the curriculum. What is it that we are teaching at the school in terms of your language? Is a single medium? It's a you have a dual medium of instruction. So you will then look at all those elements, and then lastly, within 30 kilometer radius,
Yes.
those that have an interest of applying in that school, they will still then qualify.
Well, one can only assume that that's a huge administrative challenge as well.
Look, definitely, because we are starting with it. All these years, people were accustomed to doing things in a certain way. Now, people must then be accommodative of the new regulations, and be mindful that a school must then accommodate people that are within. Because in some areas where demographic has changed, people need to access the schools. They don't need to be shortchanged by the issue of, like for instance, probably your language or your distance. So all those elements have been covered now.
What happens, maybe it's a stupid question, if I live in Pretoria, but I want to put my child in Helpmekaar in Joburg because I was there and it's sentimental, this rule is not for that. I can still do that. Or is that what you
probably
trying to prevent?
If you work there.
But if you don't work there, let's say you live in Kroonstad, for that matter, but you were in Helpmekaar, you were in Paulroos, and you sent your child to that school. Or is that what actually you want to cancel out?
Look, the main crux of the matter here is, where do you stay? Where do you live? Because you can't, unless if it's a boarding, then it's fine. You can take your child there at the Helpmekaar. because it's a boarding. If there's boarding and lodging, then there's no problem. But if there's no boarding and lodging and there's no address that brings you closer to that school,
Then it's going to be
how is that child going to access the school? One, how is the child going to commute? How is the child going to be? Who's going to be taking care of the child? Who's going to be responsible for the child? But if you have a family that is closer to that area, and then you want that family member to take care of your child, then now with these new regulations, it's allowed. Remember, previously, when you say one is family, it should be biological, you're a parent, you're a mother, you're a father. But now, because of the extended family phenomenon, if I say, leave my child with you and say, take care of my child, and my child must, stay with you and learn here, you don't need a court order to go to school and prove and say, I'm a guardian, like for instance. You don't have that, but earlier you had proved that you are a guardian, you are appointed by a court, that you're taking care of this child. According to the new regulations, because we've seen that some of the families, they've got extended families, and you find that probably both parents pass away, and the child is stranded, does not have anyone to take care of. But you have an extended family that can just take over and take that child, but they don't want to administratively be legal guardians, but they're just taking care of a child.
Yes.
So that you will be allowed.
Yeah, and you need to consider the child at the end of the day.
Yes.
What is important is the child.
Yeah.
Well, some people believe in a so-called backup plan. They register their children with or in more than one school. Is that also allowed?
Definitely. What we will normally do, we give people an opportunity to apply to 5 schools, so that you then weigh your options. Because some will say, I'll use a home address to apply for a certain school, and probably use the work address to apply for a school that is closer to work, depending on what will come first. If you have a space in closer to work, you know that you'll travel with your child and drop off the child and then go to work. After work, you go and fetch your child. Some will then prefer next to home, probably be someone in the house who will be going to take the child, or you have plans, you are flexible, during working hours, or you knock off early, you can go and, fetch your child. So there is that flexibility, which is normally open, yeah.
Okay, and what are the costs involved with regards to the registration process?
No, look, the only cost is your cost that you will have at the fee-paying school.
Okay.
If the school will tell you that this is what we would normally charge you for the child to, the tuition and those fees, that's what you will normally pay. But all other children, this process is free. You can't pay for it.
Okay.
You just apply and you allocated space, and then you just take your child there. And we know that now there's a new, the Competition Commission has ruled on even on school uniform, the monopoly on school uniform, or schools dictating that you just go and buy uniform there. Gone are the days when you're just going to be told, just go buy there. There must be some sense of competition. So fees will be dependent on a school and the level, because you'll know that schools are not the same.
I wish we had more time because I would have loved to ask you about management in schools, etc. But thank you so much for joining us for this discussion this morning.
Welkom by die Groot Ontbyt se YouTube kanaal. As jy dit nog nie gedoen het nie, maak seker jy doen dit nou. Teken aan deur op die rooi subscribe knoppie te druk. Ja. En dan vir meer video's soos die, dan klik jy op die Wat is daai? Playlist, dis 'n playlist. Die playlist knoppie.